Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show.
Welcome to Consulting Leaders Podcast, a place where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your own practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, John Degnan. Join me as we talk with the best consultants in their niche. Keith Rosen is one of the most recognized voices in sales coaching and leadership development. As a founder of Profit Builders and author of multiple best-selling books on coaching and sales leadership, he has spent more than 3 decades helping organizations transform managers into high-performing coaches. In this episode, Keith breaks down why most companies don't actually have a performance problem, they have a leadership and communications problem. We explore coaching cultures, sales leadership, retention, accountability, and how consulting leaders can create organizations where people genuinely thrive. Keith, welcome.
Oh, thank you, John, for having me.
It's great to have you here. What originally got you into consulting, coaching, and leadership development way back in 1989?
Gosh, if I can remember, it feels like a lifetime ago. I got to search my memory bank. So I owned another company at the time, and I remember vividly. It was about my 7th year into owning the company, right after I graduated, and I was reading the newspaper one day. And at that time, when we started the company, I was responsible for sales, and then of course that evolved very quickly into sales management. And the next thing I know, I had 50 salespeople that I'm managing, and have no idea what I'm doing. After all, I knew how to sell. No one ever taught me how to manage. So what did I do? I just sort of managed them the way I wanted to be managed and taught them how to sell the way I know how to sell. And I realized very quickly that didn't work. And reading that article, I remember it was April 24th, and it said there's this thing called life coaching. Life coaching, what is that? And peruse through the article. The next thing I know, I'm speaking to my partners. I sell my portion of my business to them, and I open up my coaching business. And very, very quickly, it shifted from life coaching to sales coaching. And very quickly, that evolved from sales coaching to working with leaders and managers. So just to share a little more about that progression, when I first opened my practice, people would ask me, "So Keith, what are you doing now?" And I would say, "Well, I'm a coach. I'm a sales coach. I'm a life coach." No one knew what that was. I said, "You're a life coach? Wait, what sport is that?" No, it's not a sport. It's life. It's coaching people on creating the best version of themselves and achieving more than they thought possible. And I remember vividly, my friends, anyone looked at me and they're like, "That's the stupidest thing I'd ever heard in my entire life." And here I are. An overnight success in 34 years, John, right? And I remember now, then moving into working specifically with salespeople and developing my own coaching, not only my practice, but methodology. There was no coaching methodology out there. There was no frameworks or specifically for sales organizations. And then I'm working with these salespeople and I'm training and I'm coaching them and they're improving. And very quickly I noticed they're hitting a ceiling. And the more I worked with salespeople and working with managers, I quickly realized that the root cause of all challenges within organizations goes back to one person. It's the leader. And companies spend billions of dollars a year on sales training and spend only a fraction of that on management training. I speak to companies all the time. "Hey, do you guys offer sales training for your directs?" "Sure, once in a while, maybe when they're onboarded." "How about for your managers?" "Oh, no, we promote them and then, we just, give them their team and have them run." So that's when managers fall into a trap of, how do I develop people? I know how I did it. And very quickly that now transformed, which is the reason why I wrote my last book here, and the second edition 18 years ago, because there's still a message that managers and leaders need to hear today, especially in our tech-driven, AI-driven world. So now I'm spending the majority of my time not only working with salespeople and helping them transform to be better coaches, but doing the same with leaders and helping them lead with intention and not create a sense of a culture of leadership dependency, but of autonomy, of accountability, of a culture of collaboration and transparency, and that's what people want most, and more than ever they're struggling with now in their hybrid world. So that's kind of where my journey has brought me now, and had the pleasure of working with hundreds of thousands of salespeople and managers on 75 countries and 6 continents. So it's been quite the journey, and looking forward to seeing what's next.
There's life coaching and there's sales coaching. What is some of the tenets from life coaching that you've transferred into sales coaching to be successful in that realm?
You know what, and thank you for that. People, especially today, we're realizing, and many have and many still haven't, there is no more such thing as life balance. There is no more division of here's my work life and here's my personal life. Since the pandemic and creating our new hybrid landscape of work, there's just life. So to your question, which is so pointed, is when I'm working with sales leaders and CEOs of multi-billion-dollar organizations, one coaching session I could be talking to them about the strategic direction of their organization, and then in the following coaching session, I'll be talking to them about the argument they may have had with their significant other. There is no more division. There's just life. And to label it life coaching, it takes a heck of a lot more experience and skill to then be able to be not only a life coach, but a leadership coach, a sales coach, a time management coach, an organizational coach, all those things. You can't take someone where you haven't been before. So to me, really, that sense of life balance today, quite frankly, is what people want more than ever. And, even though people are coming to me, Keith, I need help on developing my team, becoming a better coach. I need my organization to be able to lead in a more effective way, not in a result-driven, metrics-driven way. It all comes down to making that transformation with the managers. And that's really where the foundation of change can really begin.
What specific problem are you helping organizations solve today?
Interestingly, I go back 34 years, and the same challenges are still surfacing today. Just showing up with a different face in a different time. Call it AI. This massive disruption of business with AI and technology, and combining that with our hybrid work landscape. Managers have never gone through this before. They, quite frankly, have no idea what they're doing, let alone have been trained in how to do this. And as we discussed, have never been trained in how to coach. So what I'm finding is I'm spending probably the majority of time working with leaders and them coming to me and saying, Keith, I'm struggling with turnover. I'm struggling with my team hitting quota, which statistically speaking, sadly to say, we are on track for 2026 for about 49% of salespeople hitting quota. Last year, I think it was 51%. So it's actually getting worse. You look at engagement. The level of disengagement in the workforce now is 91%. I mean, that 9% of the workforce is engaged. So you're running into these same challenges of performance and trying to scale and attrition and departmental silos and building trust with your team and really understanding how to create a learning culture and a developmental culture, not a metrics-driven culture. These are all the things that I was working on with managers years ago, just like I said, a different face, a different story, but they're still struggling with more than ever today when our world is so uncertain, when there's so much fear and uncertainty in our world, that is bleeding directly and infusing directly into our businesses and into our lives more than ever. So, even to take it to the next level, 18 years later, Yeah, I'm talking about the marriage of technology and AI with humanity, which is really what we all need to balance out. But, it's also about how the conversations, John, have changed. The conversations have changed dramatically since when I first started. A performance review and turning it into a coaching conversation, that's something that's been going on until the end of time. However, as you mentioned before, well, Keith, how does life balance, figure into this? Well, again, if I'm working with someone and, they might have everything together at work, their team's thriving, but, they have no boundaries at home. And, especially now, John, we have more visibility into people's offices and homes than we ever had before. And leaders and even salespeople aren't always leveraging what they can observe. And if you even take a manager who's having a one-on-one with a salesperson remotely, they're not leveraging the things they're even seeing because either they're scared or they don't know how. So for an example, maybe they have a salesperson that are doing a one-on-one with, and the salespersons, they're sitting in their kitchen. They look exhausted. It looks like they haven't slept in days. They're wearing a stained shirt. There are dogs and cats and children all over the place running wild. Piles of books on top. Are you going to tell me as a leader I'm just going to have a review or a one-on-one and say, okay, have a great day, I'll talk to you next week? We now have seen things and observed things that we can address with people. The challenge is, though, is that leaders, number one, are thinking, can I do this? And how do I do this in a way that my directs, my team want to open up and have a deeper conversation? Because the dominant strategy, the leadership imperative today is care. So leaders haven't asked questions like, so John, walk me through your self-care regimen. How do you take care of yourself? How do you set boundaries between, work and life? At the end of the day, given that you're working at home, how do you turn off work and come down to your family and be fully present with yourself and with them? How do you manage your time? Let's take a look at your calendar. Make sure the things that you value most are also being respected and taken advantage of and honored in your routine. No one's asking these questions. And the reason why is because leaders have never been asked these questions. These are new conversations. So, if you're asking me what I'm working on, it's the core, but it's so much more because technology has changed so much. I was reading even an article the other day about a new department that an organization developed and new positions that didn't exist a month ago. So now companies, not only are they trying to stay ahead, but departments and positions are being created daily that never even existed 2 months ago, a year ago. So, compound that with all that change. Coaches like myself really need to be able to hone in what's most important with companies, and just like sales, what they see as the problem and, quite frankly, what they don't see.
You mentioned care for yourself with leaders, but leaders also have to care about other people. How do you teach empathy to leaders?
I find that wherever I go, and I coach people on this, if you ever want to open up a conversation, just simply ask for help. Wherever you go in the world, if you say, hey, listen, I could really use your help, the universal answer is yes. So, to your question is, I see that, looking at whether I'm working with managers, in India or Africa or Argentina or wherever I'm going, those number one, the same universal principles still apply. Coaching is a universal language. And I want to make sure I build off that last part of your question. So if you could throw that to me again, that would be great.
Okay, the empathy aspects of it. Certainly there's care for oneself, but there's also care for others.
Thank you. So building through that part, I find that with all the leaders I work with, they truly do have a desire to want to help people. They truly do have a core value of wanting to make an impact. I think in my years of doing this, I met one leader who actually liked to fire someone. Ironically, they got fired after a year of meeting them. But most leaders care. They just don't know how to leverage it as a strategic tool to help create a new daily cadence and weave it into their business. And I think part of what I'm seeing, it's less about teaching the empathy, John, and it's more about coaching them that it's okay. It's okay to be empathetic. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say to someone, you know what? I don't have that answer. And that's okay. Let's work on it together. That's the brilliance of coaching anyway. So, to me, that sense of authenticity, when people give themselves permission to show up who they really are, not their game face that people used to do. Well, I have my work face and then I have my home face. No. Your face is your face. How you show up is how you show up. Who you are is who you are, whether you're at work or whether you're at home. So if you're empathetic by default, there's a reason people are attracted to management, as difficult as it is. Hardest job in the world. However, it could be the most rewarding job. And to me, speaking as a leader, a manager, call it what you want, there is no greater joy. There is no greater payback than, and I just got one today, Keith, thank you so much for your coaching. Because of that, I just closed 3 deals this week. Or because of that, I just was able to have a conversation with one of my directs and we totally were able to rebuild the trust that's been destroyed for the last 3 months. Or, hey, you know what, Keith? We finally broke down barriers between marketing and sales engineering and sales so that we don't have silos, and we're working so well together that we've already surpassed our quota because we're being that much more efficient. Those are the things that get me up in the morning. Those are the things that get leaders out of bed. You talk to a leader and they're so, they have all this weight on their shoulders when they wake up because they're asking themselves the wrong question. They're asking themselves, what do I need to do to hit my business objectives today? That's the wrong question. The right question is, what do I need to do to make my people more valuable today than they were yesterday?
Interesting.
That's the fundamental transformation leaders need to make to truly make their people, coaching, and their culture the priority. And that's when companies thrive.
I'm writing that down. That's a good one. You've built a global reputation over decades. What's worked best for you when it comes to attracting consulting clients and building long-term authority in the market?
Wow. I have to start off by saying I feel bad for anyone who is entering into my industry, call it coaching, call it training, call it being an author, trying to be a subject matter expert, because unfortunately AI is absolutely overshadowing true gurus out there that could truly make a difference. With all the noise out there, it's overshadowing the valuable messages that people need to hear. And statistically speaking, at this point, and I know the number is probably running up since, I think it's about 61 or 62% of every post online is now AI generated.
Wow.
So now everyone can be a subject matter expert. I'll be the first to say, if I started my practice today, John, you and I probably wouldn't be talking today, okay? But 32 years ago, I had an opportunity, pre-internet, pre-car, we had the horse and buggy back then. And I actually had to make calls and call magazines and say, hey, have you guys, done an article on sales coaching? Like, sales coaching, what's that? So I had an opportunity to get very quick traction and some press early. And then, of course, some quick wins with clients. And from there, it really just scaled. I started writing my first book then. And keeping in mind, I was also in a unique situation where no one knew what coaching was. Now, granted, while one can argue, well, Keith, that's a challenge because you not only have to earn the client, but enroll them and, I guess, educate them on coaching. There's two parts to that. Yeah, and that was, at the same time, it turned out to be an advantage because when I was working with clients and talking to them, I wasn't selling them, I was coaching them. And they never had a conversation like that. So at the end of a conversation, it's like, wow, this feels really good. What's the next step? My practice, and again, feeling very, very grateful and blessed, is 90% of all of my business for the last 32 years or so has been generated either through my books, referrals, references, LinkedIn profile, just my blogs and my writing, the things that I give away as resources, doing things like this, connecting with other great leaders like yourself and having some, real conversations to help people. That's what's, and keeping my voice authentic, and I think that's the hardest thing today is and I see this with leaders and even people that I'm coaching that say, Keith, I want to write a book. And I've coached people on writing books. Well, Keith, how do I write a book? But I say, forget everything you think you know about writing a book and just write the way you think, because no one else can write that way. If you start getting, overwhelmed with all the other stuff, you're never going to write the book. And by the way, don't put a crazy deadline on yourself. I always write a page a week, 2 pages a week, 3 pages a week, and your best writing are your stories. And I coach people on this that want to write a book, and we're talking about how you build a business. This is a direct beeline right to this, is what makes every great leader or innovator or subject matter expert or coach or consultant unique is their experiences, their stories, who they are, the impact they've had, their background. That's something that can't be replicated. Unfortunately, today there's so much noise out there that it's getting overshadowed. But those are the things that, I felt, having that opportunity early on to really embed, and infuse my name, hopefully synonymous with coaching, having written my first books again 18, 20 years ago. People were like, sales leadership coaching, what's that? And 18 years, it's changed the face of leadership, and hopefully this is what my new book is going to do as well.
Keith, what do you think about podcasts as a marketing tool for consultants?
I think that it is getting more and more important every day. I think because, again, if we go back to what we just touched on, anything I just said you can fake. You want to write a book? Put it in ChatGPT. You want to write a blog or a post on sales, and you want to be the subject matter expert? Put it in whatever AI platform you want to use. You want to create a video in 20 seconds? Fine, go online. You can do it. Automate anything. You know what you can't automate? Yourself. This is the last time I checked. There's only one version of ourselves, so why should we try to be anyone else when that's what makes us unique? And that is very difficult for some people to swallow, because sometimes we look at others and we say, well, that's what they're doing. Well, maybe I should do that too. And then they start doing what I call shoulds, SHOULDS, and a should is a make wrong. A should are the things that go against your integrity. A should are the things that go against your priorities and your core values. For example, well, this speaker or this consultant is working, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, so I guess I should too. Or this consultant's focusing on, wow, a really interesting niche. Maybe I should too. And that's where we get seduced by what we think people are doing that's going to make us successful, but it may not be who we are, and no one can take away your message because it's your message. No one can take away your stories because they're your stories. And as I was just coaching a gentleman on writing a book, I said, forget about everything. Just write a story. And he told me a story he had with a client. I said, you know what you just have? You have chapter 1 right there. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, you just shared with me a great story about how you worked with a salesperson who was an underperformer and turned them around by giving them the care, the time, and the coaching that they need. That's a pretty powerful message that managers need to hear. And he looked and he's thinking, he's like, wow, I never thought of that. That's why we work together, I say. So, to me, I think the opportunity is really, my answer is a wholehearted 1,000% yes. We can't fake this, John. Okay, I mean, well, actually, technically, someone probably can create an AI version of this, but for the most part, you can't. You have to be your own person. You have to show up as the individual you are and believe in the gifts that you can give. Because if you're not honoring your values, then whose values are you really honoring? And that's what's going to give you your competitive edge, is you.
Interesting. Looking ahead, where do you see the biggest opportunity for leadership coaching and sales culture transformation over the next few years?
Well, I think it's hard not to speak about technology and how that's being integrated into every sales function, every department, every industry. The challenge today, of course, is that people are grabbing onto it and really not understanding what it does, how it does, and quite frankly, the dangers of it. And there's a massive education process and learning process for companies and salespeople to be able to leverage it the quote unquote the right way and in a way that's really going to be supportive and actually not dangerous for people. And that's another whole area that needs to be, another area of training and development. If we train people on using a CRM, and I'm not saying we do that very good, we also need to train people on, how to use AI. What's the process? How do you use a prompt? When is it acceptable? When is it not acceptable? And that's a training process. So I see, continually the challenge of, wait, we can't lose our humanity. We can't allow technology to replace our humanity. We have to use it as a tool to enhance what we can do, to make the things we're doing more effective and efficient. But hey, the last time I checked, and I don't care, I'll say it now, I'll say it in hopefully 50 years, people buy from people. So we can automate processes and it makes it absolutely easier for all of us. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about sales, I can automate that entire process, but when we're finally having that conversation, you're buying from me. You're not buying from an Autobot. So, I think that's probably one of the biggest shifts. The second shift is something that I'm actually offering now. I'm not even charging for it, and this is not even a shameless plug, is that I created my own ChatGPT, Keith AI. And I literally created a firewall around it so that it's only my content. Because as you know, you can type information and quite frankly get irrelevant and inaccurate content. And nobody wants to make a decision on that. So I basically protected this with only my content and coded it in a way where it actually coaches the way I coach. And that's something I give out, and certainly people can find that on my website. My point though is that that's going to become not a replacement for coaching, but something that's going to complement coaching. Something that the leader could say, hey, this is what we worked on during our conversation. Now I want you to go work with, X person and come up with this plan. Feel free to use, any AI, but make sure we achieve X, Y, and Z. So again, it's infusing that human capital, that human intellectual capital with technology. And I'll tell you something. A quick story, John, is I was doing a training about a year ago, and I asked the audience a question, and within 30 seconds, someone raised their hand and literally gave me the perfect answer. I'm like, wow, you want to take the mic and switch places, man? Because you nailed this. And he's like, ChatGPT. I'm like, oh my gosh. So now when I do exercises, I actually have to say, phones down, computers down. You cannot use AI for this exercise.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. Keith, great conversation. If people want to find out more about you and see what you do and how you do it, where should they go?
Well, they could certainly fly by to my website, keithrosen.com. You can get, number one, you can get my free version of my Keith AI ChatGPT sales coaching. Number two, you can get probably 60 or 70 pages of my brand new book downloaded for free in audio, in Spanish, and Mandarin, and English, in my voice. Not that I speak all those languages, but I am a tech geek, so I was able to leverage my platform and clone my voice.
And what's the name of the book?
And my new book is Coaching Salespeople into Sales Champions. Second edition, just came out in April, and it really focuses on the continued evolution that leaders and organizations need to go through in this age of technology and hyper change. So, and of course, I welcome everyone to connecting with me on LinkedIn and any social venue because I'm always posting new content there as well.
Okay. We'll put all the links in the description. Keith, thanks so much for coming on Consulting Leaders. You're brilliant, and we really appreciate your time.
Really appreciate it, John. Thanks again for having me, and I wish everyone out there extreme success.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you learned valuable strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.